Welcome, everybody, to Web and Beyond Live for January 27th, 2021. I'm Ray Sidney Smith. I'm president of W3 Consulting and managing director of W3C Web Services, which provides affordable web and WordPress hosting, managed hosting, domain name registration, and other web-related services for small business. And Web and Beyond Live is a chance for me to discuss with you topical and timely issues relating to digital marketing, cybersecurity, and other information and communication technology infrastructure, as well as productivity technologies that I love so much relating to business process implementation, automation, and improvement each week. All the things I believe you need to be successful marketing and managing on the web and beyond today as a business. And so feel free, if you're joining us here on the live stream, to go ahead and chat, and I will see those messages hopefully in the dashboard here, and I can respond to you. If you're watching the replay, feel free to leave a question in the comments, and I'll be happy to do my best to answer those for you as well. Today's agenda is for me to cover some of the digital marketing news that's out there. And there's been some discussion about what our, say, conference is going to look like after the pandemic is over, and some of the more interesting pieces about changes in the market. Wattpad was purchased by a Korean company, Naver, and what does that really mean for the world of businesses publishing works and other kinds of things in that nature. So I just want to cover some of those news, and what I want to do is close out today with a little bit of discussion about a new social network called Clubhouse, and kind of explain what it is and how you should kind of perceive this in the market of other types of social things. And so what I wanted to do was to bring my screen up so that you could see what I'm talking about while I'm talking about those things. And so here we go. So first and foremost, I wanted to talk about the idea of what's going to happen in the world of conferences after COVID. And Wired Business had this interesting podcast episode that they put out about it, and what they really talked about was it being shorter and what they called smarter, in essence having different features and so on and so forth. My whole idea behind this is that I think that conferences after COVID-19 and the pandemic are kind of solved. What we're really going to see is a hybrid environment, and we've been seeing that happen over the course of the last 10 years. We've had more and more environments where there have been more remote events. I mean, going back to the 90s, there were, as far as I know, there were business coaches who were having teleconferences. Basically, they were doing these large workshops by telephone, and those have been great for certain business coaches. And now we have come into this place where we can actually bring those people into an audio and visual experience. And because the technology has been accelerated by virtue of the pandemic, we now have more and more technologies available to us. I mean, it's becoming trivial to be able to bring people together, which means that those virtual experiences need to offer something bigger and better than would otherwise be offered in just a general in-person event. And so that's the thing that I really want to see is, how are you being creative with your virtual events? There is a cost savings by virtue of not doing it in person. And so there's a clear lower barrier to entry, kind of thinking of Porter's laws here. And so if we can think about it from the perspective that there's lower barrier to entry to do these virtual events, more of them are going to proliferate, which also means that there's going to be greater competition for people's attention, which also means that your events need to be better. And what are those things that you can creatively do in order to make them so? So that's really what I'm thinking about as we move forward through the rest of this pandemic and into kind of the next phases of things. So next up, of course, is an article I picked up from Yahoo Finance about how to save the internet without destroying Section 230. And without getting into the particulars of this, Section 230 is a section of federal law. It's part of the Communications Decency Act, and it's frequently called like the 26 words that created the internet. And there was a book written by Jeff Kossoff called The 26 Words That Created the Internet, and it's really all about liability and who's protected from speech online when you are hosting other people's speech. And so the Communications Decency Act in Section 230, in essence, provided this level of safety for, say, for you as a business owner. You have a website, and if you don't, you should have a website, right? And your website may have comments turned on, or you may have a forum, or you may host a community. When people post comments on those communities, you are allowed to filter content that you don't want to be on there. For example, I might have a community about digital marketing, and if other people who are digital marketers come onto that platform and try to tell people to leave that platform and come to theirs, I should be able to go in there and filter their content. I should be able to take that off, delete it, what have you, and tell them that they shouldn't do that. That's my right as the owner of that platform. But if that same person or persons came onto the platform and started to put out bigoted speech or hate speech of any kind, it's not my requirement to take that speech offline, but there are potentially legal ramifications notwithstanding to that. If they threaten violence, those kinds of things, those people need to deal with that factor, and it would probably still behoove me as a company not to be related to these people who are proffering that kind of speech. So again, this is not censorship at all, and we need to really hone in on the fact that we're not talking about censorship. I'm a private company with a private platform. I am not a government, and so I am allowed to filter that speech, and that's my right. The idea here is that Section 230 being in trouble because really both sides of the aisle, both Democrats and Republicans, have had issue with it over time. I think ultimately we as business owners need Section 230, and there is probably some modification to the law that can be done in terms of regulation, not necessarily changing Section 230 itself. So I just think that everybody needs to get a little bit more aware of what Section 230 is and what it affords you. What it affords you as a business owner is protection. Protection from someone saying, hey, you hosted, someone posting something on your website. Say, for example, someone comes to your website and gives medical advice of some kind, and you didn't know that they posted this medical advice, but someone then went ahead and followed that advice. It's a benign recommendation in your eyes, but it was something that someone took to heart. They went ahead and took that medical advice from some other person, not you, and were injured. They were harmed in some way, shape, or form. They sue your business because that's where they read it. Section 230 protects you from that lawsuit. So these are the kinds of things where we think, oh, well, who cares about Section 230? Well, you really should care about 230 because that's the protection that's provided to you by virtue of that. Now, it's not, I'm not your attorney and I'm not giving legal advice, but the goal is for you to make those judgment calls with proper legal counsel in terms of if you are hosting any website where people can comment on them, make sure that you are paying attention to this and that you are supporting this Section 230 provisions, because it's what's allowing really the internet to proliferate. Think about all of the various places, from every social network to YouTube, which is also a social network, but to every forum, every email and online forum that exists. They exist because of Section 230. And so we need to kind of remember that component of it. And yes, that does mean that some speech will be out there that we don't want to see, but we can also create good policies among those various networks. And that's where I really feel like the pressure should be applied. We should be applying pressure on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and other places that are hosting speech and saying to them, listen, we're not going to give you business if we think that you are we aren't going to give you our business, that is our time and attention on those platforms, if we believe that you are hosting the kind of speech that we don't agree with. And that's the market at play. And I think that's really more important here than fiddling with Section 230, which was written in a way to solve a problem. And it solves that problem, but has created some other problems, which is having unfortunate speech that we don't want to see in society, out there in society. But it's going to happen no matter what. If it doesn't happen out in the open, it's going to happen, under the carpet and in the floorboards and into the foundation. There are just always going to be these kinds of imperfect speech items that are out there, like hate speech and harmful speech and otherwise. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we have this ongoing argument, but you should be kind of armed with the knowledge about what Section 230 does for you. Next up, this is kind of esoteric, but I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, not for its specifics, but for more the idea of what this is. So Brave is a web browser, and it is supposed to be a privacy-focused web browser. It's built on top of the Chromium project. So Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, both run on top of the Google Chrome Chromium project. And Brave has taken a step toward decentralizing things using this new protocol called the IPFS protocol. And so that's great. More importantly for you, though, is that I really think that business owners should be a little bit more mindful of their personal privacy when it comes to separating business and work. And so what you can do is you could say, for example, run Google Chrome and run all of your business functions on that, especially if you're in Google Workspace, tie your account to your Google Workspace account in Chrome and go to town. You get your work done. Now you have this seamless integration between the web browser experience and all of the tools you're using within it. If you're in the Microsoft 365 space, well, great. Download Microsoft Edge, connect your Microsoft account to Microsoft Edge, and now you are happily moving along in, you're still in the Chromium world, but you're on the Microsoft side, so all of the Microsoft goodness is baked into the browser, and now you can use that for your work stuff. Then you choose the opposite browser, whether that be Brave or Firefox or Google Chrome if you're in Microsoft Edge. If you're in Google Chrome, you choose Microsoft Edge, Firefox, or Brave, depending upon how much security and privacy you want out there on the web, and go forward, right? Then that way you've got a separate browser for personal and a separate browser for professional or work-related things. And that way you're keeping at least part of your world segmented. I think that's good for productivity purposes, like it's a good productivity principle, but it also actually is a privacy separating component. I actually always use an incognito or private browsing session inside of another browser when I'm doing research on behalf of clients, because I don't want that, if I'm helping out a pastry shop and doing lots of research for a pastry shop, in setting up a marketing strategy, I really don't want those searches to be inside of my personal or professional Google history, because now all of my searches are going to think that I'm interested in pastry things that I'm not. So we have multiple browsers and we should be using them to our greatest effect. And I think everybody should be using multiple browsers for productivity and for privacy and security reasons, especially when you're doing kind of financial transactions with your business. You might want to use a very privacy-focused browser like Firefox or Brave. Turn on some of the more sophisticated security provisionings so that you have a little bit more security there as well. Just some suggestions related to thinking about how that all works. Next up is Wattpad is a storytelling platform that's quite interesting, and it's been running for many years. And Goodreader put out this article about the fact that Naver, which is it is a web hosting company that does many other things in Korea and in South Korea, and they have recently purchased Wattpad. And Wattpad is really interesting in the sense that it gives writers and readers a way to connect. And so you have all kinds of interesting overlaps in the ways in which Naver, which is known for its comics, digital comics, and the fact that now you have this Wattpad platform being purchased by them, which allows writers to have conferences and contests and competitions and all kinds of other fun things happening on the Wattpad platform. And it's a way for writers, authors, to connect with their readers. And so, again, I would just check out Wattpad if you're thinking about writing a book, or if you're in that space. It's certainly a place to think about. And now that it's within this larger company, Naver, I'm very curious to see how Wattpad is going to grow in that sense. Next up, let's see. So this is really interesting. So there's a Lifehacker article about Yelp and how to find out about a restaurant's COVID-19 measures. And what came to mind was the fact that for you as a business owner, you need to read this article. If you have a restaurant or retail environment, you need to start paying attention to how other people are doing research into how you are keeping up with your safety measures within the business. And so they are actually going in and saying, okay, well, Yelp will display these pieces of information to see whether or not the business is actually doing things. Is there heated outdoor seating so that people are capable of eating outdoors in cold weather? Are there one-to-one sessions available? Disposable or contactless menu? All of these various options within the Yelp system are kind of being added, similar to the way in which Google My Business, those Google Maps business listings, have also added all of these features. So you can see here that they have some really interesting New features here, including staff was checked for symptoms, disposable or contactless menu, as I mentioned before, heated outdoor seating, covered outdoor seating, indoor dining, private dining, DIY meal kits for restaurants that want to give you stuff and you take it home and cook, outdoor services just generally and available for fitness and beauty businesses, one-to-one sessions available, and limited group sessions. And now what we want to do is apply this not just to restaurant, but to retail and to any other professional and product business where this may be useful for you to think about. If you do have a physical imprint and you are seeing clients in a in-person perspective, and the pandemic has caused you to not be able to do that, how can you facilitate using some of these safety measures and or modify your business to be able to do that, including these kind of DIY meal kits? I've seen a lot of businesses convert what they would otherwise be doing in person for clients or customers, and then deciding, okay, we're going to do this in a kit version, or we're going to build a product to sell locally so that you can come and pick that product up, use it. Maybe all of the parts are maybe too much to invest in by themselves, but you can, in essence, kind of rent. By buying these kits, you're renting part of it, and then you're bringing back the more expensive components so that you can do that at a cost-effective rate, and you're cycling equipment and that kind of thing. And so I just feel like there's a lot of really good stuff here, but just know that customers are now armed both with Google and Yelp with these kinds of research functions that are going to be able to tell them whether or not you're doing the right things to keep them safe, and that's going to really make a difference all around to your overall profit generation. So with that, I wanted to jump over to this component, which is I came across this article on Social Media Examiner, and it was all about Clubhouse. And if you have not heard about Clubhouse, Clubhouse is a new application. It is invite only currently, but you're going to start hearing buzz about the Clubhouse world. And the idea behind Clubhouse is that you are in a live audio conversation. And so I don't need to keep this up on screen anymore. So I'm going to come back out of here and come back to you all there. There we go. And so you have this environment where, and it's also iOS only. So it's currently iOS only. It's currently invite only, and the application works on iPad, which is where I actually have it installed, but it's still that like mini application on the screen because it's not built for the iPad. But either way, you in essence have the application, and when you're inside of it, you can invite I think 5 other people. So you can only invite so many people at a time. And they give you a calendar, and inside that calendar, you can see upcoming Clubhouse rooms. And so those various rooms are titled for particular subjects. Now, the idea is that you have a real-time conversation with the people who are in the room, and as the host, you're able to actually bring people on stage so that you can hear them. And so you can in essence have a conversation with one or several people at a time. And so these are my general thoughts. I think the idea is interesting. The conversations cannot be recorded. That is a reality factor of the platform itself. So if you are a host of, say, a podcast or otherwise, you're not going to be able to podcast on this platform. There is no recording function within it, and it seems like that's part of the kind of the ethos of this particular company, is that they don't want any recording of the system. And you can create your own rooms and then invite people to those rooms in order to have those conversations. You can connect with friends just like you can on any other social network. And the platform itself seems really interesting. It's getting a lot of buzz because obviously it's a different format. We have on the other side of that, Twitter, which is launching Twitter Spaces soon, and we'll be talking about that probably in the next few months once they bring out the beta and start getting people onboarded to it. But in essence, social audio is here, and we've talked about this in a couple episodes ago, the idea of social audio, and we are going to see more and more of this coming forward in the world. I see a couple of problems with this. One is that because the platform is new, it's going to get a lot of attention, akin to TikTok. And I think that the importance here is that if your business lends to having these kinds of intimate conversations with people, and that actually provides value to you to sell, then use it. Go onto Clubhouse and really see how it works. The challenges to Clubhouse for me is that I don't think it's going to really reach some zenith or nexus where it becomes anything of any dominance. It's not designed for dominance. The Facebook and YouTube, those are designed for dominance. And then you have these smaller networks like LinkedIn or Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, which are designed with specific purposes in mind, and therefore they're always going to be limited in their size because a natural grouping of people are going to adhere to them. I'm interested in Twitter for one thing, and I'm interested in YouTube or LinkedIn for other things. So the goals for people really make a difference here. In Clubhouse, since it's focused on audio only, it's really going to limit the platform in that sense, and it's for intimate, close knit conversations in audio. And so that's great. And I think that's a fantastic use. And if the platform works, then people should use it. But it's not going to be for everybody. And certainly the fact that it's a real-time thing, there's a lot of FOMO, so you have to kind of fear of missing out. You got to jump in and listen to the conversation. Otherwise, it's gone. And so because there is no long-termness, there's no longevity to the audio that's being recorded, there are a couple of problems there. One is if you are trying to access the information and you do not have some kind of accessibility features built into the platform, people who are hard of hearing or deaf are not going to be able to engage, and that's a huge problem for accessibility. The second is that say if I'm in an environment where I can't listen, I need to be listening to stuff going on around me for safety or otherwise purposes, and I want to still be in the conversation. I need those accessibility features. I need to be able to read what's going on when I cannot listen. And again, since it's ephemeral, I'm not going to be able to engage in the conversation after it's over. So there are these built-in limitations in the platform, and maybe they can solve for them. But at the present moment, the way in which I see it is that it's interesting, it's very cool. It is kind of a one-to-one time investment. That is, if you want to spend time on it, you can't go in and schedule things. In most of my work with clients, I'm really talking about how to be efficient with regard to engaging on social media, which means scheduling posts and being able to engage at specific times that are good for you and your audience. You cannot do those things if you are in a constant one-to-one engagement time frame with a social platform, and Clubhouse does require that. You're in real time, and in order to make an investment in the platform, you have to submit or commit to substantial amounts of time, 3-4 hours a day on this particular platform. And that's why I think just generally it's going to be capped at that just for the long term. It's not built for being a mass scale social platform that everybody engages on all the time. You may engage on it in short bits and then disconnect from it. So just like with TikTok and even with Snapchat or Twitter and LinkedIn for that matter as well, there is a specific group of people, a slice of the global society that will utilize this, and I think that it will serve that purpose. And you may find that it serves a purpose for you, but do not think that this is going to be everything for everyone. This is not the next Facebook. This is a social audio network, and it's going to serve that purpose. And I think it's doing a lot of the things right. Again, I would like to see more accessibility here, and I'd like to see the functions for being able to record, but I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe the accessibility features, but certainly not the recording pieces. Just from what I've read from their kind of policies and whatnot, they don't want to do it. So that limits me as a podcaster. I want to be able to capture the audio and share that with people. But of course, you're recording other folks. But for example, I run several book clubs, and they're virtual book clubs now during the pandemic, and they'll probably stay virtual book clubs afterward. And I ran a virtual book club before that, so it was kind of a natural piece for that. And so now. I would use Clubhouse and just record the calls, because everybody knows we're recording the calls for the podcast so other people can listen in on the book club discussions. But Clubhouse is not providing us with that ability, so we'll just have to continue to use Zoom or other kinds of audio recording technologies to be able to do that. So just wanted to kind of pique your attention about this new social network and my first take on it. It will potentially modify over time as we understand how this really goes forward. If you have any questions about Clubhouse, I'm in the system and I'm utilizing it. If you want an invite, I have a couple left. So feel free to, private message me somehow, either on Twitter or otherwise, and I can get you an invitation to Clubhouse if I have any left. So if you all reply to me and want them, I'll give them to the first folks who respond, and then I will go from there. But I won't have many. They only give you 5. So I gave a few away to colleagues who asked for it, and then now I have a couple left. So. With that, we have reached the end of our time together, and I just wanted to let everybody know that in early February, I will be highlighting our 12 Days of Small Business. That is the business owners that were part of our 12 Days of Small Business program that we started in early January. And so there were, I think, 15 participants. And the whole program behind 12 Days of Small Business was me just kind of putting out there that we need to support small business during this pandemic and ways in which we could do that. And I asked all of our 12 Days of Small Business owners, the participants, really, how can we help them? How could we help them? And I'm hoping by highlighting these ideas, you will be triggered with ideas in which you can potentially ask your audiences to help you. Maybe you can also help the 12 Days of Small Business participants, but more importantly, it's getting the creative juices flowing about ways in which you can be resilient and dynamic in this environment. We are going to have more closures. We're going to have more flare-ups around the country with regard to the virus, and we need to be able to, adapt to those things. So just thinking about those things, I'll also be talking about a Google Web Story. I think about 5 or 6 episodes ago, I talked about Google Web Stories again, and I've created some, and I'm going to be talking to you about really what those look like, and so I want to get those in front of you. We have a whole host of events that we'll be publishing on our website soon, so if you go to w3cinc.com/events, so that's w3cinc.com/events, and it's on screen here, w3cinc.com/events. You will be taken to our events page, and in the coming days, we're going to have all of our events published for the next couple of months up there. So our webinars, our roundtables, and other kinds of fun things that we have planned for you will all be going up there very soon. And last but not least, feel free to join me in Web and Beyond Community. Web and Beyond Community is the digital community I've created for all the small business owners in my audience. So if you're interested in joining and sharing information, go to www.webandbeyond.community. You can join us, and we're still small and nascent, but we'll be growing and leaps and bounds in the next, probably half year as we come toward marketing and bringing the platform online in terms of programs. I'm really looking forward to really building that up. That means we have come to the end of our time together for this week. If you've enjoyed the live stream, feel free to hit the thumbs up icon. That helps us make new small business friends, and so thank you for doing that. If you have a question, as I said before, you can leave a comment. You can also tweet or message me on Twitter at W3 Consulting. You can also message us. I think if you go to W3 Consulting Inc. is our Facebook account. I think you can private message us there. You can also email me and all those other things if you have my email address. But you can just comment on the video. However you want to reach out to me, go ahead and do that if you have a question, and we'll do our best to try and respond to those. Join us usually every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We are actually going to be changing it up the next few weeks. And so I will be posting the events on LinkedIn as well as on our website and otherwise, so that you know what the dates are. I want to try a few other dates and times to see which work best for the audience, and I've gotten conflicting information. Some people like the times that I'm doing at Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Some people are asking me to do midweek, midday times. This was the closest to that I could do on a midweek, and so I did it here at this time to see. We're going to try some afternoon times later in the week, and so we're just going to kind of play around with it. And I apologize for those of you who are going to have to kind of bounce around and see, but I'm going to try and post everywhere I can when we're going to be doing them, so that we can just try and see where the most of you are going to get the benefit of it. And of course, you can always listen after the fact or watch after the fact. Save Web and Beyond Live in your podcast app of choice, or you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel on YouTube and watch it there as well. So thank you so much for spending this Web and Beyond Live with me. I'm Ray Sidney Smith on behalf of W3 Consulting and our subsidiary, of course, W3C Web Services. Have a great week ahead, marketing and managing your small business on the Web and Beyond. Take care, everybody.